Hey folks, this is Abel James, and thanks so much for joining us on another episode of the Fat Burning Man Show, where we talk about real food and real results. Be honest now, how often do you say no to things you really don't want to do? Now, we're conditioned to sit in desks, be quiet, follow the rules, raising our hands to ask permission to go to the bathroom. Do what you're told and never stray from the herd. Get a job, bite your tongue, pay your taxes, and behave. But as the years chug along, saying no becomes a superpower. Try it now with me. No. Nope. No way. No. Feels good, right? Now, joining us on the show is someone who is very inspiring. He's the one and only Bobby Maximus. Now, Bobby Maximus is a former UFC fighter and Toronto police officer who earned a Bachelor of Arts degree from the University of Western Ontario with a double major in psychology and English. So you can tell he has a lot of diverse interests and skills. He's a very fascinating dude. Bobby's here to share the importance of saying no, the benefits of self-imposed limitations, and how to manage your governor without blowing your knee out. But before we get there, here's a review that came in from Lauren. She says, I love this podcast so much. My favorite way to start the day and drive to work. I really appreciate how Abel brings in a variety of guests with different backgrounds, experiences, and perspectives. He is strong in his stance about overall health, yet is always open to hear different viewpoints, learn, and gain new insights. I love the transparency and how this podcast opens the dialogue for different perspectives. That needs to happen in the health space. With so many people and things taking the my way or the highway approach and putting other people down in the health space, this podcast is a true breath of fresh air. Keep up the mission of the podcast, Abel. It is a true inspiration to me. Lauren, thank you so much for writing in and for the kind words. I'm really glad that you're finding inspiration during your morning drive to work while other people are getting road rage or, slamming down disgusting fast food breakfast sandwiches or what have you. That's a great way to get this show into your habits. And don't forget, there are over 300 episodes of this show, and a lot of them you can find more by listening to them over and over again, according to a lot of listeners of this show. I've heard of some people listening to a single episode more than 100 times, and that totally blows my mind, but they probably know me better than I do at this point. So in any case, if you're listening to this show and you've gotten some value out of it, then please drop me a line at abel@fatburningman.com. That's ABEL at fatburningman.com. Of course, hitting subscribe and leaving a review for this podcast, video podcast, or for any of my books, audiobooks, or other things that are out there on Amazon, Apple, and all these different platforms. Hitting like, subscribe, and leaving reviews really helps more than you know. But even more than that, sharing this free show with someone who might be interested, just shooting them an email or a text message with a link to this. For some reason, it's a lot harder these days in this dystopian future to be found just through various searches on platforms because of shadow banning and censorship and just the simple fact that the powers that be and the big platforms now are pushing out mainstream media over independent creators like us. So keeping that in mind, when you like, subscribe, and share this show, it really helps us out. Now, if you want to support this free show and all the different projects that we're working on, like the improv music videos, humor books, virtual adventure tours in VR, and much, much more, then you can go over to wildsuperfoods.com. These days, most people, unfortunately, don't get enough nutrients just from their food alone. So my wife, Allison, and I started up Wild Superfoods to make it easy for you to load up on the good stuff your body needs. Now, another reason we started up Wild Superfoods is so that we could be our own sponsor and maintain our message without any puppeteers trying to come in and controlling what we can and can't say. Now, the platforms, like I said, do kind of do some censorship and stuff like that. We get videos taken down more often than I'd like, but at the same time, I feel like we're gathering steam, and there are a lot of people who believe in the same principles that we do. So we love to hear from you. And if you'd like to support us, make sure you go over to wildsuperfoods.com if you're here in the States, hopefully international soon. But you can grab our ultimate daily bundle for a limited time, which gets you Future Greens, Mega Omegas, Vitamin D Stack, as well as Probiotic Spheres, and you'll save over $128 off by selecting the subscribe and save option. So all you have to do is go over to wildsuperfoods.com/save128. Save 128. So one more time, that's wildsuperfoods.com/save128, all numbers. So just go there right now and you can get the deal. When you subscribe, you'll also get free access to our group coaching program in the Fat Burning Tribe as a special thanks for supporting our work. And to get all of the latest updates, discounts, news, and information, be sure to sign up for the newsletter, which is totally free, over at fatburningman.com. Just go to fatburningman.com, enter your best email address. We'll hook you right up and send you a 7-day wild meal plan, as well as quick start guide, so you can get rolling right away. And don't forget, you can hang on to the end of this show to hear a special reading. And I'll start with a poem about how I lost everything in a fire about 10 years ago on Easter weekend. That's a true story. And it starts off by basically being saved by a former professional fighter. And since Bobby Maximus, the guest of this week's show, is a former UFC fighter, I figured that might be appropriate, so it's kind of fun. So hang on till the end of this episode. Now, all right, on to the show with the one and only Bobby Maximus. We're chatting about the power of writing it down, why we become too dependent on exercise equipment, why Bobby isn't the guy to change a tire on the highway, how to use exercise and sports psychology to make you better at life, how to say no, and tons more. Let's go hang out with Bobby. All right, folks, Bobby Maximus is a best-selling author, former UFC fighter, and devoted family man. Bobby has been featured in numerous workout publications, conducted many seminars, and worked with Tier 1 assets and special forces groups within the U.S. military. Today, he's here to take away all of your excuses. Bobby, thank you so much for being with us.
Yeah, thank you for having me on the show. I really appreciate it.
So I got to admit, I was reading your book yesterday, and I didn't get the whole way through it because I got up and went for like a long, hard run through the mountains. It was awesome. I was so pumped up just going through, because like I was saying, you take away the excuses. Why don't we start right there? Because if someone tells you they don't have enough time for health, you have a nice little process you put them through.
Well, for sure. And it's actually what I do is I give people a time audit. And it's actually interesting because one of the biggest platforms that I teach on is that the gym is just a microcosm for the rest of life.
Yeah.
Like the things that you learn in the gym and the problems you encounter within the 4 gym walls, they're relatable to your marriage, your business, if you're a doctor, to your practice, if you will. It's all the same stuff. It's the same toolkit. It's the same process you're going to go through to solve problems. And in various aspects of life, the excuse of I don't have enough time always comes up.
Yeah.
I don't have enough time to go to my kids' recital. I don't have enough time to do accounting at my business. I don't have enough time to do, I know you said that you have a large listenership of like doctors and health professionals and stuff. So I don't have enough time for follow-up for patient care, or I don't have enough time to train. It's all the same problem, if you will. And what I do is put people through this thing I call a time audit. And what I do is I start with 168 hours because that's the amount of time in a week. Mm-hmm. From there, I start subtracting the things that you have to do or that you have to commit time to. So the first one is sleep, because if you don't sleep, you can't survive the day and you can't be at your best. So I tell people, do you have time for 8 hours of sleep a night? And it's funny because the first thing they say is, I don't have time for that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, listen, so you get the point of the exercise then, but I'm going to let you sleep 10 hours a night. So there's 70 hours. You have 98 hours left. And then I take off work. And most people, it's really funny today. There seems to be a glorification of the idea that people work 60 hours a week or 70 hours a week. Like the more you work, the more you grind, the better of a human being you are. But a lot of people don't realize that 60 hours a week, that's 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday to Friday. Not many people pull that kind of schedule unless you're on Wall Street. So I give people a 60-hour work week. There's 38 hours left. What else are you doing with your time? 38 hours is a lot of time.
That's a lot of time.
And people will start saying, well, I got to go grocery shopping. Okay, I'll give you 2 hours for grocery shopping. So now you're down to 28 hours. Or sorry, we were at 38. Now you're down to 36 hours left. Well, I gotta hang out with my kids. I'll give you 21 hours for that. And they're like, that doesn't seem like a lot of time. So I ask them, that's 3 hours a day. So 21 hours is 3 hours a day, 7 days a week. Of hanging out with your family, no cell phones, no TV, no outside distractions. When's the last time in your life that you did that? And they're like, never. Like I've never done that. Okay, so you still have 15 hours left. So what are you doing with all your time? And the reality is everybody has time. Everybody can make time. And what's funny, and it's not unique to anyone, it's funny the people that say they don't have time for one thing, but something that they value more comes up, and they can sure make time for that.
Well, you were just saying, 15 hours left. That's two hours a day. I mean, I've been waiting. One of the things that I want to do is upgrade my musicianship, because I got to play out and I have my undergrad, but I never got to go to graduate school, and I would have loved to do that. So I wrote it down. These are like the goals and the skills I want to work on for the next few months. And I signed up for jazz piano lessons, and every morning I wake up, play for an hour. I've been doing that for like 3 months now, and I can tell, it's happening. But one thing that I love about your book is how you just quantify it, right? It's like 130 hours. I think can you explain that example in your book? I think it's a really good one.
The 130-hour rule is, I honestly needed something catchy to sell the book.
Sure.
I needed something catchy to sell my fitness program. And 20 years ago, I actually worked in a Globo Gym. And a Globo Gym is, have you ever seen the movie Dodgeball?
Yeah.
The Globo Gym Cobras?
Yeah.
Globo Gym is my word for like a big box, lifetime, 24/7 fitness studio.
Sure.
And when I was working there, I came up with this 130-hour number. And where that came from is I believe that I can get anyone on the planet a really high level of fitness if they work out with me 5 days a week for 1 hour for 6 months.
Yeah. That's
the equivalent of 130 hours. But when you're trying to sell a book and you're like 6 months every day, it's not sexy. 130 hours makes you sound like you can get it in under a week.
Well, really, so, I haven't thought about it that way, and most people don't really think about it, because that's pretty simple. Even waking up for me, now that I built that habit, it's like, I make some coffee and then I go and play. Sometimes I'll just practice scales for an hour.
Yeah.
And
so let me ask you a question on that regard, because I always try to put something back in somebody's arena. What instrument do you play?
I mostly play guitar and sing, and a little bit of woodwinds.
So you play the guitar. I've never played the guitar in my life. I want to start that conversation by saying that. If I got a really good coach, a guitar teacher, I don't know, Jeff Healey, Eddie Van Halen, Adam Jones. I mean, I don't know who the person is, but to teach me, and I really poured my heart and soul into it for an hour a day for 6 months. I'll bet in 6 months I'd be pretty good.
You'd be pretty good. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter if you call yourself tone deaf or anything. If you put in the work, it'll happen. Yeah, for some people, it'll happen differently. Maybe it's better, maybe it's worse. Like complex is not better. Some people do some things that are very simple very well. And then you just double down on that, like having a different body type to bring it back to the physicality and working out and working on your health. It's like some people are going to be a lot better at doing the bench press. Other people can run really far. Other people can run really fast.
Absolutely. But an hour of quality time a day. And that's the key. It's quality time. This 130 hours has to be quality time. I really believe if I spent an hour learning to cook, under like a really good cooking teacher or chef, if I, learned to play guitar, if I did computer programming, an hour of really good solid practice. And there's no, listen, not on my cell phone, not
Right.
distracted
That's
by
the thing.
TV. I mean, I'm really zoning in that hour a day. I think in 6 months, I could do some pretty incredible things. And the human body's not any different. The reason people don't think it's possible is because they've never put in a quality hour in their life, let alone 6 months of quality hours.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking now, the 10,000 hour rule is something that, you know, became a cliche years ago, but a lot of people are familiar with that. You kind of become expert level in something if you just put in the 10,000 quality hours. But if you just put in the 130 hours that I'm thinking, like,
You'll be good.
Whatever instrument it is, it's like you'll be, if you did that with guitar, for example, you would be indistinguishable in a lot of ways for just the average layperson who's never played any instrument from someone who has been playing for those 10,000 hours. Yeah, you could probably tell a difference, but it's not like you don't keep going up in a linear way.
No.
It's exponential, absolutely.
No, and the other thing too is people forget with the 10,000 hours, that's for an expert.
Yes.
Let's understand that, like,
Yes.
that's not a relative term. If you were to take an expert in the field of guitar, you're talking a handful of like 10 people on the planet,
Sure.
right? If you're saying an expert in the world of, and this comes up all the time in fitness, what's your definition of fitness? Like, great, you can bench press your body weight. You're not that fit.
Right.
When you realize what the upper limit of human potential is, it's insane how good people can get at stuff. So yeah, you're right. 10,000 hours, that's how you get to the upper limit of human potential. Like that book that it came from, and I think it's Malcolm Gladwell, Outliers. Yeah. But like, we're talking about people like Wayne Gretzky. And I don't know if you guys realize who, you know, the listeners realize who Wayne Gretzky is, but it is like as if God said one day, I'm bored. I want to make the greatest hockey player ever and just unleash him on the planet.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like you're talking to a guy that's kind of good at hockey. It's a guy that when he was playing was scoring 97 goals a year and getting 215 points. Guys are lucky to score 40 goals right now and get 100 points. Like he's just on another, like he's like an alien. That's the 10,000 hour guy.
Right. And a lot tougher to fit into a calendar. And so I think people use it as an excuse for like, well, I'll never learn to play piano. I don't have the time for it, right? Whereas it's just like, if you have that 15, everyone has some form of 15 hours a week to do something with that's under their control, right? So like, make a little list. This is another thing you mention all the time. Write it down. It becomes real. It does something to you. So write down what you want to build in yourself. But it also it means admitting to yourself that you're not perfect and whole right now. And that's a big step for a lot of people.
But when it comes to fitness, you don't need to be.
Yeah.
Like one of the questions I always ask people, you know, when they're trying to get a certain level of fitness is like, do you get paid for your level of fitness? Are you a professional athlete? And if you're not, you can settle in a degree for a very high level of fitness and be fitter than you'll ever need to be.
Sure.
On an hour a day, 5 days a week. But we suffer from this thing where I want to be the best in the world. But that's not going to happen unless you're going to devote your whole life to it.
And what does that even mean? Like, can Kobe or Michael Jordan say that? It's like, can Wayne Gretzky even say that to himself?
Well,
like,
you can't, because fitness is relative. If anyone asks me, and this is it throws people off. If you were to say, Bobby, do you think you're fit? My answer is always fit for what, or fit compared to who?
Right.
Because I'm really fit if we're lifting weights in a gym. I'm really fit if you want to get in a fight, because I used to be a professional fighter. To run a marathon? I could do one. I could finish one, but am I fit? I'm not running a 201 or a 203. I'm probably not even running a sub 3, which isn't that great. That doesn't even qualify me for any kind of championship. That's like a local guy I live in Salt Lake City. That's like a local guy doing a sub 3, and I can't do that. I mean, when you look at what fitness is, so it's a completely relative term. And that works the other way too, where you can be really fit. You can be the Ironman world champion, but you can't carry a suitcase up a flight of stairs. It's a real thing. So it just depends, what your definition is.
Yeah. And you need to choose, what do I want to be fit for?
Well, yeah, to a degree. I mean, for most people, it falls into the category of looking good naked. That's like the joke kind of term that I use. But like when you ask, well, what are your fitness goals? Oh, I'd like to have some abs. I'd like bigger arms. I'd like to look good in my suit. My buddy's getting married. I'm standing in the wedding in 6 weeks. I'd like to put on a bit of muscle. Great. I mean, that's pretty easy to accomplish. You're not trying to reinvent the wheel. I don't get many people that call me up and say, hey, Bobby, I want to run a sub 2-hour marathon. Like I've never taken that call.
Yikes.
I've never taken the call.
They wouldn't hire you anyway. You're too slow.
No, I'm too slow and too big. The person that says, I want to win the World Ironman Championship. The person that says, I want to win World's Strongest Man. Like you don't get those calls.
Yeah. But also you don't have to necessarily specialize, right? Like I consider myself hopefully somewhat cross-trained. Like I went for a run, but I also lift at least once a week and do smaller kind of mini bodyweight exercises throughout the week. And I want to stay fit enough to go out and hike or like run almost a marathon if I wanted to, or not for time, but more just because like it feels like something that I want to do intuitively. You have to follow that energy somehow.
Yeah, the way I explain that to people is I always say specificity has a cost.
Yeah.
If you want to specialize in a field, there's a cost. And I always use the medical profession to explain this to people.
Mm-hmm.
You know a lot of doctors, right? Sure. Or you've talked to doctors?
Yeah.
Have you ever met anyone that's a pediatric neurosurgeon, a cardiac surgeon, and an orthopedic surgeon? No, because you don't. And the first example, I'm very specific about it, pediatric neurosurgery. Mm-hmm. There is a division of neurosurgery that's for only pediatrics. Yeah. So a good friend of mine, Dr. Doug Brockmeyer, he's one of the leading experts in the world for pediatric neurosurgery. He doesn't deal with adults. He deals with kids. Yeah. That's his specialty. I deal with a guy who's one of the better orthopedic surgeons in the world, and he does knees and shoulders. That's it. Yep. Like if I'm like, hey, I got an elbow problem, he's like, well, I'm going to refer you to this person. Yeah. I'm like, you're one of the best orthopedic surgeons in the world. He's like, yeah, for knees and shoulders. So even in that specific field, you drill down. Or you can have a general practitioner who knows a little bit about fevers, knows a little bit about cancer, knows a little bit about the brain, but that guy's never doing a surgery. Right. And he has to send you to a specialist if you have a problem.
So how do you get ready for a UFC fight when the goal is to be win the fight? That's like, how do you define that? And what do you study? What do you train?
The biggest thing about fighting that people, I think, misunderstand about any sport, you're not in a fitness contest. You're in a fight. Yeah. It's a skill. Like you can make the argument that the fat, out of shape black belt or like karate expert will beat up the most fit person in the world who's never thrown a punch. Yeah. That's absolutely true. So what people forget is it's not a fitness contest. Now, does fitness play a role? Yeah, when everybody's skilled. Right. But skill level is the single most important factor. So when you look at a good training program for fighting, you better learn to love boxing. You better learn to love wrestling. You better learn to love some form of submission grappling like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Mm-hmm. And the fitness kind of comes second. By the way, while you're practicing those skills, you should be getting more fit. Right. Because they are physical skills. Like for you, if you're playing guitar, you're not going to get more fit playing guitar. They don't go hand in hand. Right. But if you want to learn how to box with me, there's a certain fitness component underlying to learning that skill.
Yeah, and to the point that we were talking about earlier, if you're a great wrestler, but you're kind of bad at boxing, you're going to get a lot more benefit probably from going at that weakness, trying to develop that up to some sort of sense of, okay, I can kind of box now. And then that starts informing the wrestling, right?
Well, and that's what you said earlier about if you do the 130 hours, you get a certain level of good, right? If you do 10,000 hours, you get a certain level of good, but it's not a linear,
drops off, yeah.
It's not a linear projection. It's more like it curves out at some point. There's a interesting book I was reading, and I can't remember what it is right now, but it was saying that once you're at 90% of your potential, To get 2% more, you have to take everything you've done in your life and double it.
Wow.
Which is insane.
Yeah.
So you're talking like when you're already that skilled, to get 2% more, the amount of work you have to do to go up a little bit is incredible. Whereas if you've never done anything before, you're gonna improve rapidly at the start.
Yeah. And that's something that people should be encouraged about, because the hardest part for a lot of folks is kind of getting back in shape, going the first time, right?
I always joke, I hate beginners. And it's honestly, if you hate something, on my podcast, Maximus podcast, I talk about this. We had a whole episode on haters. And when it comes to new people in the gym, I'm a hater, and it comes from my jealousy, because these people hit personal bests every day. Like every day is the best day ever in the gym, because you're lifting more and you're running faster and you're losing weight and you're getting more ripped. And it's like a party every day. For me, if I sleep wrong one night, I go backwards.
Yeah.
So I get jealous of my new people, because it's an amazing experience getting in shape. I'm just trying to stay on the bus.
Yeah, that's why the hard part is kind of getting back in shape, right? Because like people remember back to when it was easy, and it's like when you start getting back in shape a bunch of times, it's less refreshing and less cool and less amazing every time.
You lose that allure.
Yeah. So how do you stick with it? Especially, we were just talking before we started recording about you're doing some recovery right now, and how do you maintain performance as you age? So let's get into that.
Yeah, a big one for people that can't see what we were talking about is I'm in this set of boots called Normatec recovery boots, and they run air pressure through your legs. So essentially, it helps with circulation. It's a massage. The pressure helps your legs regenerate without like drilling down into all the minutia of the scientific detail. But they really work, and they're great. And I'm sitting in them as we do this podcast, because to be Bobby Maximus and to stay on the bus at 40 years old and be one of the best in the world at what I do, I have to devote more time to recovery outside of the actual training. So not much has changed since I've been 20 in terms of my physical output. I can do everything I did when I was 20, but what I can't do is only get 4 hours sleep a night.
Yeah.
What I can't do is miss a sauna session. Like a sauna session for me is as essential to my level of fitness now as the actual workout.
Interesting.
Sitting in these boots is as important as the workout I did this morning.
And what happens if you don't do those things?
I can't do the work in the gym. I fall apart. So, for example, I mean, normally if you were to quantify this, normally I can deadlift over 600 pounds. Mm-hmm. If I'm not in the sauna, not in the boots, not getting 8 hours sleep a night, there are days I struggle to pick up 500 or 515.
Interesting.
That's a remarkable, I mean, that's a 20% decrease if you look at it. And I'm just sticking to the deadlift because it's easy to quantify, but that's true across all fronts. Like my rowing times, my running times, my jumping ability. There are days that I go in the gym and I feel absolutely just hammered, like I have nothing in the tank. Mm-hmm. And I'll take a second and I'll think, well, what's been going on? Yep, I only got 7 hours of sleep last night, and the night before I didn't eat quite enough calories, and I wasn't in the sauna or the boots. And it is always the same thing. The body starts to fall apart. So as you get older, you just need to take care of yourself better.
What about managing your own personal bests, or what you're aiming for, your goals as you age, right? Like, so you coach people who are in their 40s, 50s, all over the place, right? And so how do you manage that, especially if they are experienced athletes, not the first timers kind of getting personal bests all the time?
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole thing, and I'll back up a second. I'll explain it in the eyes of a normal person than a professional athlete. Yeah. There's this whole myth out there that you can be your best self at 45. That's not true. Like, I mean, I guess it's kind of true if you were the person who treated your body like an amusement park in your 20s and your 30s and did nothing and found fitness in your 40s. You can technically be your fittest at 45. But you don't see a high-level Olympic athlete that's done stuff their whole life hitting their peak at 45 years old.
Right.
You're struggling to hang on at that point. So there's this myth out there, like I said, like you can be amazingly fit at 45 years old. Well, sure, absolutely. And you could be more fit than a 20-year-old at 45. Yes, but it depends the 20-year-old we're talking about.
Yeah.
Because if you found fitness at 40 and never did anything before that, yeah, you're going to be in the best shape of your life. But if you've been working out the whole time, it's hard to just stay on the bus.
So
the
how
first
do you
thing
manage
is
that? Yeah.
It's through sports psychology. It's managing people's expectations. Now, you can delay the inevitable. I mean, you can delay the inevitable to a point, right? Like, you know, maybe the person, and you see it sometimes in sport. Tom Brady's a good example of this, an NFL player, quarterback who's, you know, still playing really well at 41.
Yeah.
Well, at 33, he wasn't drinking and partying.
Right.
At 35, he wasn't drinking and partying.
Or eating tomatoes even.
He wasn't,
He's
not
very
or
specific.
strawberries or whatever he does. Like, he's got a system where this guy is regimented 100% of the time. So maybe he's extended his career. Other guys are retiring at 38. Maybe he lasts to 42 or 43.
Yeah.
At some point, though, he's going to fall off. It's going to happen. So it's managing people's expectations. And what I tell people is the older you get, the more work you have to do. More saunas, more recovery boots, more work on your diet, more sleep, more massage. Eventually, you can't do anymore. Like, you just run out of time in a day, and that's when it's time to call it quits. Or mentally, you've had enough. It's funny. I've never quit in a workout in my life. But there have been times I've wanted to quit the sauna or quit the boots because I've had enough of doing recovery. Like the second time you're in a 200-degree sauna in a day, the second time you're in the boots, the third time you're taking a nap, it's like, I just don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah.
Like, I've had enough. And that's, I think, the point where it's time to walk away or tone down your activity, which means then your fitness has to drop.
Yeah. So about that, what's like longevity fitness for you or for anyone else? You know what I mean? Like, how do you manage the decline in performance, but still keep your head straight? Because a lot of people, you know, get that rush of hitting those personal bests. Everyone's rallying in the gym, and then you don't really get that. You don't realize that that's a special thing when it's happening, right? But it doesn't happen your whole life necessarily.
You really have to be level-headed with having a thorough understanding of what your goals are. And you need to do some psychological introspection on really what you're trying to do with your life. Yeah. Like, listen, if you're a 40-year-old guy that's going through a midlife crisis, don't start getting into competitive sports. Like, I see it all the time where a guy hits 40 and he hits his midlife crisis, or 45, or some guys hit it at 32. And all of a sudden, they're going to sign up for a 100-mile ultra race run.
Yeah.
You're going to hurt yourself. Like, you've got to know who you are, where you are on the food chain, and invest in yourself accurately, I guess. Now, listen, I guess signing up for a Spartan Beast race or an ultra marathon is better than buying a car you can't afford and maybe having an affair or something else happening, right? Like, that's a better choice. We can agree on that. But the problem is like, if you're just trying to look a little better so you can be a better husband and a better dad, if that's your real goal, you need to kind of stay in your lane and not do all this crazy stuff. Yeah. And so it's getting people, again, it comes back to managing expectations. So if you tell me, you know, what are your goals? And you're like, well, I want to be a better guitar player. I think being fit can help me play guitar better. I want to be better at hosting podcasts. I think being fit can help me with that. You're absolutely right. But nothing about that says you have to deadlift 600 pounds.
Right. That's why I don't.
Right? No, I mean, there's a number there. Maybe it's 250, maybe it's 300, but that's good enough. And so it's being able to accept who you are and kind of marry that up with what your goals are.
How do you not get destroyed by injury, especially when you're dealing with something like that?
Well, again, it's losing that ego. I don't know if ego is the right term for it, but like, I don't need to deadlift 700. Yeah. See, so here's the deal in life, in any area, the closer you get to that red line, the closer you get to that cliff, the closer you push yourself to extreme limit, the chance of injury goes through the roof. Yeah. So if you and I go for a jog, we're not going to get hurt. if you and I try to sprint for money at the track,
Right.
one of us is blowing a hamstring.
Yeah.
It's just going to happen. So the thing is kind of understanding when enough is enough and being good with it. And that's a big part of my maturing process. Is I've kind of come to a point where honestly I'm happy with a 600-pound deadlift. I don't have to do 700. Because if I try to do 700, my chance of injury goes through the roof.
Right.
If I get hurt, I don't look like I look. I can't live my life like I live my life. I can't do my jujitsu. I can't play with my wife, my kids, my family. Not worth it.
So how do you kill your governor but still stay away from that injury red line?
That's difficult. And everybody struggles. The killing the governor concept is I think we're all capable of a lot more than we give ourselves credit for. And really it comes from self-awareness. And that's going to be a huge theme. If you talk to me long enough, the whole I don't have enough time thing, what it really comes from is a lack of self-awareness.
Yeah.
If you're in a failed marriage, it comes from a lack of self-awareness because chances are you're doing some things that you could fix or you could change to improve that marriage. If your business is failing, people will blame the economy. They'll blame all kinds of other external factors, but it's a lack of self-awareness. So it's really, really like when you look at self-limiting behavior in psychology, everything comes down to being self-aware. It's why people spend millions of dollars a year, billions of dollars a year, I'm sure, on therapists, because therapists help you become more self-aware. They help you see things that you might not see yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes you need to have that outside party who's just there. Like, I don't need a music teacher. It's just more fun. It's more interesting. You have a comrade.
Yeah. But also they tell you if you find the right teacher, they'll tell you unbiasedly what you really need to work on.
Because they'll drill into it. That's their job.
Yeah, we're all slaves to our own bias. Like at some point you're going to gravitate towards what you like versus what you should be doing.
Yeah.
We all do that in life. Same thing with the gym. Like I love the bench press. So I want to bench press every day. Well, maybe I get more benefit working on my pull-ups. Maybe I get more benefit going for a run. That's where a coach helps you because it takes you out of it. There's actually a really good Nietzsche quote, and I can't remember exactly how it goes, but it's nobody gets into God's opera box. And what that means is there's no such thing as true objectivity. For God, maybe.
Yeah.
For everyone else, you are incapable of being objective because you're a flawed human being with bias.
Yeah.
Therefore, you're your own worst enemy in any situation.
What about how do you allow yourself to be bad as Bobby Maximus?
What do you mean bad? Like not good at something, or
bad
not
good. So it's like if you're going for if you're going for a run and you're the slowest runner with a bunch of runners who were skinny and long limbed or whatever.
Yep, I'm actually quite good at that because I failed my entire life.
Yeah,
I actually have a different relationship with failure than most people have. I love failing. It's made me who I am today. I talk about it in my book a little bit, but I was bullied pretty heavily growing up. When I was 15 years old, these 4 kids got together. I call them hockey bullies because they all played on the hockey team. They beat me up and broke my collarbone in gym class. I didn't want that to happen anymore. I joined the wrestling team. I was terrible. Every match I did, I lost badly my first year. My second year, I won 1 match out of 40. Wow. I finally found the weight room. I was the guy that got pinned under a 45-pound barbell. I was the guy that didn't know how to deadlift. I was the guy that had to figure it out on his own. Now, luckily, I had some high school kids, some of the older kids that were in the weight room helped me. Yeah. There was one kid, Peter Xavier, that really helped me. And if I met him today, I would say thank you to the guy. Yeah. He gave me some advice. He probably doesn't even remember who I am, but helped me out with a couple of things. Jim Fox was one of the teachers. He really helped me. Eugene Vinci, Brian Sepatelli, like they helped me and I got better. And then I got better and I got better. And eventually you fail enough, you learn a lot about yourself. You learn a lot about your psychology. You learn about perseverance. And despite how many times I failed at various arenas in my life, one thing is true in any area: the more I try, the better I get. Yeah. So I just don't let failure get me down. I look at it as a challenge. So if I go out for a run with you and you smash me, well, looks like I've got a lot of improvement to do. And I
You're going to take me deadlifting.
Yeah. Well, I'll take you deadlifting to put you back in your place.
Exactly.
I mean, I look forward to the process of growth and the challenges I'm going to face and how that's going to make me a better person.
Yeah.
I don't get hung up on actually failing. And there's also an ego part of that as well, because I'm not egotistical enough. I mean, I've been called vain. I've been called narcissistic. I've been called cocky by haters online, because if you're confident these days, people don't like it.
Yeah.
But I'll also be the first person to tell you I'm not perfect and I'm not good at everything.
Yeah. You know, one thing I really loved reading in your book was how you still feel like the kid who's afraid of public speaking. Because I do too. I can totally relate to that.
You know, and it's funny because like with a lot of this stuff, I who does think they're good at everything?
Right.
Right? Like
There's
it
that
just
illusion.
it doesn't make sense to me. It's okay to fail. It's okay to be bad at stuff. It's okay to be a beginner. Like, it was actually really funny. Me and my wife the other day, she had a flat and she's like, "Can you change my tire?" And I had a moment where I was like, I don't know if I can do this.
Yeah.
Like,
been a while.
And she's like, this is the kind of thing, she made a comment, isn't this the kind of thing that a husband should know how to do for his wife?
Oh, no.
And I was like, ouch, that kind of hurts. Like, what did you mean by that? She's like, well, I feel like all guys know how to do this. And I'm like, no, I don't. Like, I just never, we need to call roadside service. I mean, I can sit here and figure it out in an hour, but we can call roadside service and they do it. I'm like, babe, listen, if someone breaks into the house in the middle of the night, I'm your guy.
Yeah.
Like, you want a UFC fighter beside you.
Right.
Right? If you want someone to write you a workout, I'm your guy. If you want a guy I'm actually the king of all nerds. I love Magic the Gathering, Dungeons and Dragons,
Cool.
Lord of the Rings, all that stuff. Like, if you want a guy, like, it's with my boys, like, I love the Thundercats and He-Man and Lord of the Rings, and like, I can be a good dad. I'm not the guy to ask to change a tire or do some plumbing or work with some electricity. You know, I mean, that's just, I can't be good at everything.
I think that's getting into a little bit something I wanted to talk about. Oh, we still have time. Is toxic masculinity? Just what that's morphed into today is not healthy. Let's call it that. But what do you see when you look at masculinity?
You know, I struggle with this issue because I feel the toxic masculinity idea has been taken too far and misunderstood.
Sure.
Right? There's nothing wrong with being a man. There's nothing wrong with being a man who likes quote unquote manly things. Like, it's okay to like football. It's okay to like cage fighting. It's okay to drink a beer. It's okay to swear a little bit. Like, though that's not what toxic masculinity is to me,
right. Yeah.
But that's how some people are making it out to sound. There's a difference between toxic masculinity, and because we are a family-friendly show, there's another word I use for this, but I'll use the family-friendly one, being a jerk.
Yeah.
Like, it's not okay to be a bully. It's not okay to put people down. It's not okay to be abusive towards women. It's not okay to use a position of power to purposely hurt other people. And by the way, liking football or fighting in a cage should have nothing to do with being a jerk to other people. You can fight in a cage and be the most manly guy ever and still be nice, right?
Yeah.
At the same token, I don't like it doesn't make me less of a man because I like quote unquote feminine things. Like, it's actually really funny. I'll tell you a little secret about Bobby Maximus. I've got them sitting. I'm looking at them right now. I do scrapbooking in my spare times. It's a creative outlet for me. So for my first son, I didn't do a baby book. I made him like a 90-page scrapbook, like the story of his life. Wow. And I'm saving up things for my next son to make some for him. And every so often I go on this creative kick and I do scrapbooking, right? It's really funny when I walk into the scrapbooking place, Mom and Me Scrapbooking in Salt Lake City. I have a little membership there. And I walk in and I'm jacked and I've got a cutoff shirt and shorts. The looks the people give me there are like, dude, like, you're in the wrong place. The gym's down the street. But it's funny that there will be some people that make fun of me for that. Like, oh, you do scrapbooking? That's kind of girly. Come and fight me in a cage. Like if you want to question my manhood, let's fight about it and we'll see who the man is. Like I always joke, I'm like, you will see my toxic masculinity side come out in a hurry. Yeah. Like if you want to question me for that. And I'm at home a lot of the day with my kids and I kiss my kids and I tell them I love them. And like, I can cry in front of them and that doesn't make me less of a man.
Yeah.
So I think society needs to let go of these ideas of what's masculine and what's feminine and focus more on what's being a good person and what's not a good person.
And what we have in common. I mean, you can superficially look at you versus some woman out there and think that you're entirely different creatures, superficially. But deep down, you're that little kid, I'm that little kid, we all are, and it doesn't really matter if we're male or female or anything in between.
That's the same thing. And if a woman wants to be a firefighter or a cop, great.
Yeah.
She wants to. And by the way, that works the other way too. There is absolutely nothing wrong with a woman choosing to stay home to be a mom to her kids.
Right.
There's this whole movement lately where you're somehow less than.
Mm-hmm.
No, that's one of the best things you can do. And if you're a guy out there who's listening and your wife makes a lot of money and has a great career, if you want to sacrifice your career to be a stay-at-home dad, there's nothing wrong with that either. Like, to me, a guy choosing to stay home and look after his kids, that's a much more noble profession than being a cutthroat businessman. We just live in a world that's somehow valued more, right?
Yeah.
You do get these guys that have a hard time with their wife. My wife once asked me, she's like, would it bother you if I made more money than you? Whoa, what do you mean? So I can like stay home and play video games with the kids all day? Yeah, that sounds terrible. Like if I could have whatever car I wanted, like if you were rich and the main bread earner and I could do whatever I wanted, whenever I wanted. Yeah, that sounds horrible. Don't sign me up for that life.
Right.
You know, but people get these preconceived notions. So that's what I think. I think the big issue isn't about toxic masculinity. I think it's people really being comfortable with themselves and getting rid of these preconceived notions.
Yeah, I love that. I can't believe it, Bobby, but we're almost up on time.
No, it goes by fast.
Before we go, I'd love for you to just, I don't have a specific question, but if there's anything that's on your radar right now, like what do you want people to hear?
You know, the biggest thing is I wish we could just all treat each other better.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I mean, I know that sounds hokey, but a big part of my message is positivity. Mm-hmm. And we live in a world where it's just so filled with hate. Like on Instagram, and I think I'm into this because social media is a huge platform for me.
Yeah.
But like, what's wrong with somebody else succeeding? There's this whole idea in the world today that if somebody else is winning, it means you're losing.
That's true. Yeah.
That if somebody else is successful, you've got to tear them down. If somebody else is successful, it's because they were lucky. They had a better opportunity than me. Maybe they just worked harder. There's this whole thing of I'm raging with jealousy because your podcast has more downloads than mine. So now I've got to hate you and make negative comments. Why can't I just call you up with a pad of paper and a pen and start taking notes so I can do it too?
Yeah.
Like I don't want to have the tallest building in town because I tore everybody else's to the ground.
Right.
Right. I just want to build my building higher. And so one of the big things that I've really been focusing on is how to be a better person and how to use the gym to help you get there. Because I think a lot of people don't like the way they behave.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people make negative comments online. They gossip about other people. They put other people down, but I don't think they feel good about it inside.
Right.
You know what I mean? They know it's wrong and it causes them a certain cognitive dissonance. And so that's a big thing I'm into lately. And like I said, I mean, I want to raise a better brand of human, like in terms of my kids. I want to try to be better myself. And I'd like to be better for other people. And listen, that means you can still talk some smack. You can be funny. It's okay to make fun of people sometimes as long as it's in good fun. It's okay to kind of be a bully sometimes or kind of have some fun, but there's like some underlying truths that I think as a society should be addressed. And as an influencer, if you will, I don't know if I like that term.
I don't.
But as a person that has a platform, I've kind of come to the point where I feel I used to stay away from this stuff, not talking about politics, not talking about social justice. But I think that if people have given me the privilege of allowing me to be in a position where you'll listen to me, I think I kind of have a responsibility to to speak my mind about some things. And before we go, I mean, there's some universal truths, right? Like whether you're a Republican or Democrat, that's your business. I shouldn't judge you on that. Whether you're what you want to do for work, I shouldn't judge you on that. You know what? It's not okay to be misogynistic.
Yeah.
It's just not okay. I'll argue that all day, any day with somebody. It's not okay to be racist. I'll argue that all day, any day with somebody. It's not okay to be homophobic. Like that's just, I will argue that till the day I die.
Yeah.
Like that is not an acceptable behavior in our society. And especially speaking as a Canadian, where we don't have this stuff. Like Canada's a friendly place, right? Like we're known for being friendly, but there's just certain universal truths that you can't argue. And so I wish people would stand up more for those types of things, because even a misogynist doesn't like being called a misogynist.
Right.
Why? Because it's bad.
Yeah.
Like a racist doesn't like being called a racist and will never admit to it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of where there's so much stuff in the world that's negative. I wish people, I mean, I'm just big on trying to affect change in as many people as I can. And I actually had a situation the other day, and it came up with racism that I'm not trying to preach to the choir here. I'm not interested in changing people that are already on the side of good. But I had a person that sent me a message and thanked me because I helped them see another side.
Wow.
That's the person I want to help change, right? Like the person who's already, and I think that if you do look at me and look at my image and look at my page and look at what I do, I'm 6'3", 250 pounds. I fought in a cage. I'm an ex-police officer. You probably assume a lot of things about me. Like that I'm a certain type of person, but I'm not. I'm probably one of the most liberal people that you'll meet, and accepting people. And so if I can influence people to be better, I think that's a better thing.
Yeah. Well, it seems you're using your responsibility well, and I'm glad that it seems like now we're living in a time where it's maybe a little bit more appropriate for people who do have that following to speak their mind and say, this is what I can stand for and this is what I cannot stand for. And it's important that we all feel okay about that, because free speech is so right now.
Well, right. I mean, it is, but it's all back to high school.
No,
right?
Totally. Or junior high.
Think about if you're getting picked on or a girl's getting picked on. All it takes is for the popular person in the class to stand up for them, and then it ends.
Yeah. And
you may have saved that person so much pain and heartache over the course of their life. Yeah. Like it just takes that one person, and that's something that I actually remember from high school. I went to an all-guys Catholic school. And I was there when it switched over and girls were allowed in.
Wow.
And the first year, I think we had 20 girls come to the school in a school of 1,000 guys.
Jeez.
Can you imagine how poorly they were treated?
I cannot.
And I'll never forget our principal. His name's Herb Petrus. He gave us a lecture about, like, you guys have a responsibility to make sure they're treated well. So, like, it's everyone's responsibility. Like, you see somebody treat somebody bad because they're different, you need to stand up for that. Mm-hmm. Because it's your school and you should take pride in it. And I think that's true, that if you are in a position of power or you are in a position of strength, I think you're pretty lucky and you're pretty fortunate, and you do have an obligation to stick up for people who can't defend themselves.
Yeah. Right.
Or are unable because they're being bullied, right? And if more people would do that, bad stuff wouldn't happen.
Yeah. I totally agree with you.
So that's big for me, and I'm trying to raise my kids in that way, to say, like, never throw the first punch. Mm-hmm. Don't bully others. But listen, someone's getting bullied at school and you stand up for them and you get in trouble, I will have your back 100% on that.
That's awesome.
Because that's important for my kids to be raised with that lesson, if you will.
Like you're raising superheroes.
Yeah, you get in a fight because you protected somebody from being bullied. You're good. Like, I mean, you'll get suspended, but we're going for ice cream. We're going to the Avengers. Like, I will reward you till the end of the world for that. Because that's, I think, a noble thing.
Yeah.
And I wish, I mean, we've all been you've probably been in a situation yourself where someone's being really mistreated and maybe you didn't do anything about it. Everyone kind of stands around and watches. How about you just say something?
Yeah.
So that's kind of my thing.
Yeah, we need more of that. Well, right on, Bobby. I got your book right here. Where's the best place to find it and to find what you're working on?
There's really a couple of avenues. My book's called Maximus Body. I would just get it on Amazon or iTunes or Google Play, wherever you buy your books. You can probably find it. I know Men's Health still sells it through maximusbody.com. And then everything else, you can go to my social media. And my handle for everything is at Bobby Maximus, BobbyMaximus. I've got a podcast, the Maximus Podcast, talk about all kinds of stuff that I've talked about with you today. And it's supposed to be a fitness podcast, but it's like we go off in all kinds of directions about how to make people better at life, using fitness as a tool. But we talk about these bigger picture things like hate and bigotry and setting boundaries with people, and developing like self-esteem and having better self-care. Yeah. So those are the kind of 3 areas: Maximus Podcast, and then at Bobby Maximus, and then my book.
Right on. Bobby, thank you so very much for taking the time.
No, and listen, I just want to say this. I really, really, really appreciate you having me on your show, taking the time to do this. You've come very well recommended to me. I enjoy a lot of the content that you put out. Thanks, man. And as somebody that does podcasts now, being on the other end of it, I do appreciate the amount of work that you put into this, and I'm humbled that you chose to spend part of your day talking to me. So I appreciate that.
Right on. Thanks so much, Bobby.
Thank you.
Hey folks, this is Abel James returning once again as promised with a new reading from my book, Designer Babies Still Get Scabies, now a #1 international bestseller in humor. Let's start with one that's a true story about how I lost all of my worldly possessions about 10 years ago in an apartment fire. I came home one night on a Friday night. It was Easter weekend. And, well, this is what happened. It's called Flames. A rocket of flames turned the Texas sky pink as our fiery propane line blasted its stink toward horrified neighbors who couldn't even blink. We were already on the brink. But somehow, a former professional fighter, predictably pulling another all-nighter, spotted the building growing brighter and brighter as he clenched his fists tighter and tighter. Then he kicked the doors down one after the other as friends in pajamas cried for pets and their mothers. Firemen and cops found our sisters and brothers while the towering inferno began to smother everything we once called our home, leaving us naked, hungry, alone. Our armor already full of gaps and chinks. Who could ever possibly think that it would all go up in flames, that there's no one we can blame, that all we have is our name, that we'll never be the same, thanks to the flames. So if you wanted to know what I went through as the genesis of Fat Burning Man, that's it. Rock bottom. Fat, sick, broke, without a place to live, without even my own clothes. That was it. So if you've ever been in rock bottom, don't be shy. We can help each other out of it. Now this next one is also a little harsh, but don't worry, we'll lighten it up at the end here. Hot dogs and aftershave. Once we up and left the caves, we suddenly became enslaved, told that we must now behave, that from our sins we're now all saved. Today, it's currency we crave, from the cradle to the grave. It's missiles and microwaves, hot dogs and aftershave, pop stars and rollerblades, competitions and accolades, global warming in the Everglades, porno politicians paying off milkmaids, cancer, autism, Lyme and AIDS, good and evil, savior and saved. We're told it's America's fireworks that make us brave, so just pay your taxes and behave. Once we all lived together in the dark caves, now we're all plump, patriotic wage slaves. But what indeed happened to the great power that we gave when they defiled our daughters in the holy crusades? Does God really require us showered and shaved? Were we truly so brutish, crude, and depraved before we suddenly became enslaved? Were our eyes truly so blind and glazed, and our minds so primitive, wretched, and crazed? Imagine what spirits must have thrived in those days, before righteous plight flooded into the caves, with their palaces and churches, hot dogs and aftershave. Okay, Let's lighten it up a little bit. This is also a true story at one time. This house got rats. We got mice in the kitchen, raccoons under the tub. We got stray cats and rats and bats. But this house is full of love. Like I said, true story. All right, one last one about our friend Sasquatch. The world is what we believe it to be. But what if Bigfoot doesn't believe in me? Okay, so some of these are personal, some of them are uppers, some are downers, some make you giggle, but almost all of them are very fun to read aloud, and it's designed that way. So if you want to check out my new book, please go to designerbabiesbook.com or check out Designer Babies Still Get Scabies over on Amazon, wherever books, audiobooks, and that sort of thing are sold. I really appreciate your reviews. I appreciate your feedback and your support. Once again, this is Abel James signing off. Thank you so much. This episode is brought to you by Wild Superfoods. Big news! After 3+ years of nonstop tasting and testing, our brand new real food health supplements from Wild Superfoods are finally ready for you. Now, what does wild mean anyway? Well, we work with the laws of nature, not against them. We avoid anything artificial, genetically modified, or overly processed. Whether you need real food nutrition from fruits, veggies, and stress-fighting adaptogens in future greens, vitamins from Vitamin D Stack, balanced omegas in Mega Omegas, or immune-boosting probiotics in Probiotic Spheres, we have got you covered. Our shelf-stable nutraceuticals are of uncompromising quality, and they're convenient options for traveling, camping, emergency and disaster preparedness, as well as daily supplementation for optimal health. At Wild Superfoods, each of our products is lab tested for purity and potency and formulated according to the latest cutting-edge developments in research, science, and medicine. Guaranteed nutrition no matter where you are. That's our promise to you, and we look forward to hearing how you like Wild Superfoods. And as a listener of Fat Burning Man, you can save over $80 on a one-time purchase or save over $128 when you select subscribe and save. On top of that, you'll get free access to our coaching and meal planning community, the Fat Burning Tribe, which is normally $27 a month. All you have to do is head on over to wildsuperfoods.com. All you have to do, type it in right now into that menu bar on your phone, tablet, computer, or anything else, VR goggles you might be using right now. Just check out wildsuperfoods.com. Thanks for listening. We'll see you there. Well, hey there, listener. This is Abel one more time, and I just want to say thank you for listening to this episode of the Fat Burning Man Show. If you liked it, don't forget to hit that subscribe button wherever you might be listening to or watching this show right now. And if you have a second, please leave me a quick review for the Fat Burning Man Show. I read every single one of them, and every time you leave a review, it gives us a little boost in the rankings, and that helps other people find this show. And if you can think of someone else who might enjoy and benefit from this free show, please take a second to share it with a friend or a family member. And if they're like, what is this Fat Burning Man thing? That's a really silly name. You could be like, you're right, but here's the deal. We've recorded over 250 episodes of the Fat Burning Man Show with thought leaders in health from all over the world. And so far, we've won 4 awards, hitting #1 in health in more than 8 countries internationally. We have more than 30 million downloads already, but we're just getting started. I can't believe any of this, by the way, and couldn't do any of this without you. So thanks once again. But here's some more good news. You can download and listen to every single episode of the Fat Burning Man Show for free with 0 outside advertisements, no outside sponsors, and no corporate overlords. All you have to do is type in fatburningman.com. I'll give you a second here just to type it in, fatburningman.com. And you'll get all the show notes, transcripts, and video and audio versions for all the past episodes of the Fat Burning Man Show for free. Better yet, enter your email at fatburningman.com, sign up for my newsletter, and I'll even send you a quick start guide so you can take your health into your own hands right now, along with a few of our ridiculously tasty recipes as a special thanks for signing up. Once again, just go to fatburningman.com right now Enter your best email to get your free goodies with a bonus surprise straight to your inbox. This is Abel James signing off. Thank you so much for listening once again, and have a great week.